Hey, welcome back for another episode of The Voice of Generation Climate, TVOGC. Today we have with us Dr. Miniya Chatterji, the CEO of SustainLabs Paris. Dr. Miniya, what a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Annie. Nice to see you again.
You too. So, SustainLabs Paris has a goal of establishing and managing new ventures for a sustainable future. And they've actually been doing this in very many different programs. There's an education angle, there's a climate venture building angle, venture support angle. You work with corporates. It's quite the ecosystem approach that you've taken to driving sustainability into our lives. How would you best describe it today?
Thanks, Annie. It was nice to hear, how you see it as well. So that was very interesting. Yes, we are focusing on the ecosystem. The way we're doing it is by building ventures. So we build organizations, institutions, systems which focus on sustainability and climate. So, for example, you mentioned education, but education is part of our venture building activity. So we've built educational institutions, universities, who are offering degree programs in climate. We have our own carbon capture company as well, industrial carbon capture. I think lots of synergies there between what you do and we do as well. We do GITEX impact, we build that up, and then we run these ventures as well. So we put in our money, we put in our people, and we run these as well. And then besides that, we do organizational transformation, which is always very exciting. But these are long-term working partnerships with organizations who are traditional and then who want to move their products and operations into being more responsible. And that's been very satisfying to do. We typically work with very large organizations only because then the time we put in has a larger impact. And then the third thing we do is research. So technical research, we do life cycle assessments. And then, and again, for products which are global, which you and me know, we work with Pepsi, for example, for their fridges, looking at their whole impact, environmental impact from the time that the resources are extracted to make those refrigerators to the point where you and me use them. So things like that. So these are the three buckets. And yes, you're right. Across these, we do cover the ecosystem. We work extensively with governments, with companies, and with startups. We support them free of cost.
Sounds lovely. So you've had a three-continental career now. You've worked in India, you worked in Europe, in Paris, and now you're in the Middle East, in Dubai.
No,
Uh,
I'll give you my
sorry.
itinerary. So it was India, France, Berlin, Brussels, US, several years in the
Oh
US.
wow, I missed that part. That's
Yes,
so
and then Egypt, a bit in
that's
China,
incredible.
Switzerland,
Wow.
then India, and then UAE.
And now that you're finally based, now that your latest stint is in the UAE, what took you there? And yeah, like even COP28, for example, happened in the UAE 2 years
Yeah.
ago. You see the UAE becoming like a big hub for climate and sustainability now. And what's kept you based out of there?
Yeah, I think, the two questions are very interrelated, why I'm here and then the place of UAE in all of this in our field. So I came here because of the location, because we were doing work in Europe, a little bit in North Africa, and then there's Asia as well. And also we have an office in Auckland. So Dubai was just very centrally placed. Um, and yeah, and then family reasons as well. So that was the reason. And then yeah, it was, I think, great timing. When I moved here, it was all it was about 4 years ago. It was still early stages, but you know that we work closely with the government here, and it's been amazing to be part of this whole journey that UAE is on, and very much in UAE style, from really nascent stage, pushing the envelope onto really getting to move the economy to be sustainable. And they have a very, hard call to take on a lot of issues, and they are, and I'm really inspired and amazed every day of how they're doing, especially when you compare it to some of the other parts of the world. So yes, I think there's a lot of I think good intent on the part of the government, especially. Is the government that's leading, and then the private sector is kind of you know um, collaborating and participating and partnering with the government. There's a lot of good intent here for sure. So anybody who's thinking that, oh, it's like greenwashing or whatever, no, they're actually doing stuff. So that's fabulous. Second is that it's also very meritocratic. So they're actually picking on like good people in the space, doing good work, giving them a chance. So, and then the third piece is pace, Ani. And for us in this field, sometimes it's so frustrating that nothing moves. So the pace is decent as well.
Yeah. And it actually shows you why I brought that up right to the top of
Yeah.
the conversation, is it shows you what is possible
Yeah.
when the confluence of policy, capital, talent, all come together,
Yeah. I
right?
think capital and talent are very tricky right now here. I'm giving you honest answers to things because capital, there is a lot of capital right now in this region, but then it's going out of the region. So it's
Yeah.
funding a lot of stuff which is outside. So I think there's some work that policy needs to do, and that's something that is in the works also in early stages to lock the local capital also into sustainable growth of this of the country. And talent is the biggest challenge because the story of Dubai needs to be out as well, especially Dubai more than their other Emirates. People still think, I also, when I moved to it, it was a nice surprise for me as well. People think that, it's glitzy and glam and all of that, but it doesn't have oil. It's like Dubai doesn't have oil money, it
Yeah.
doesn't have oil only. So, so
Tourism and finance. People
yeah,
forget
so
that.
it's obviously
Yeah.
it's building up only on sheer talent and good people moving here and hopefully, doing interesting things. And so the economy moving, and it's very diverse, very equal, which is my biggest shocking realization. It's actually more equal than some of the countries in Europe I've lived in. So that talent piece needs to, it needs to attract more talent by getting the story out.
Yeah, but it is happening. Like globally, I've seen a lot of people moving to the Middle East,
Yeah,
and I think the center of gravity keeps shifting
yeah,
for where the future is being built.
yes,
And for a long time, it was like Silicon Valley for tech, and then it kind of moved away for a bit. People are like, oh, leave San Francisco. Now it's back to Silicon Valley for AI.
yeah,
But for other things, it's kind of become more decentralized, right, in different pockets around the world. And I definitely see the Middle
absolutely.
East being a real epicenter for that.
Yeah,
In fact, I remember you hosted us even at GITEX
yes.
last year
Yeah.
in Dubai, and you were a host for GITEX Impact,
Yeah.
right? Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that, and again how that was such a cool confluence of ideas, innovators,
Yes.
policy makers, because there are so many policy people there, right? Like
Yes.
Emirati policy people.
Yes.
Maybe just shine a light on that and
Yeah.
what an attempt like that
Yeah.
did for the sustainability industry.
Yeah. So GITEX Impact is an example of a venture we've built, right? So it's right from strategy to concept to even figuring out that what that would look like. And it's a great example of partnership. So we partnered with the Dubai government, the part of the government which looks at economy, and then there is the Dubai World Trade Center, which is part of that sort of ministry. And so we partnered with them because GITEX had been running for 40 years. And we know GITEX, right? GITEX, it's the largest technology, huge, it takes over Dubai and it's massive. Everybody's here. And the idea was to create, an exhibition, but also a all year round community and an ecosystem, as you put it, Ani, that brings together technology for impact. So that was the idea. So we worked hand in hand with the Dubai World Trade Center and came up with, initially like just research and looking at or discussing research. Of course, the team and the picking out points which could get into helping us figure out that what should be really the focus, what kind of people, how should we do it. So from that to then bringing GITEX Impact to life, and now is the third edition. And this year, by the way, we're taking it to Berlin in May. Yes, so so it's amazing to see a baby grow this way. And so GITEX Impact is all about technologies, focusing on impact. So guys, whoever's listening to it, do just message me or reach out if you want to participate in any which way.
That's really, really cool. I think
Yeah.
third edition is in Berlin this year.
No, third edition is in Dubai, and we're doing one in Berlin.
Oh, wait, you're
Yeah,
doing two this year.
yeah. So yeah, we're doing two.
Oh,
So one
wow.
Europe edition. We're doing one Europe
That's
edition.
incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. So
So
it
yeah, I
brings,
think these events done well really bring together the right stakeholders all
yeah,
under one roof.
yeah,
And I think those conversations drive intent, which leads to action,
yeah.
which leads to final impact, right? Otherwise, it's so siloed.
I
Um,
actually don't attend events. I'm telling you'll not see me also in events because just I try to just focus on what's really really needed and then my family. It's literally like two things and a few
yeah,
friends who have kept and kept with me. And but then this I think is a great way for me to reinvent what people gathering and people bringing together should look like. So that's why, and like you said, so there are policy folks, there are industry folks, there are technology people. Then we do the impact leaders thing as well, just getting people to come together for no agenda. So it's yeah. So that's why I, yeah.
you actually mentioned the impact leaders. So that is an annual list you put out. Uh,
Yes.
how do you curate that? What is the intention behind it, and what does it lead to when you
Yeah.
put this list out every year?
Yeah. So I must say that, I've picked up the best of whatever I've learned at the World Economic Forum as I was working there for a few years. And I was leading the Young Global Leaders team there for a few regions, so Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, and taking the best out of that is what we've done for creating Impact Leaders, which is also under GITEX Impact. So, to your point, it's not only an exhibition, but there's so much behind it. So every year, SustainLabs Paris and the Dubai World Trade Center, we come up with a list, and there's a lot of research which goes into the list. It's like highly academic in our research and due diligence, and all of that is done. We also accept nominations from others, but then even they go through three levels of due diligence. We also take in inputs from industry folks as well, and we take the input from the community as well. So we actually share every year. We share the shortlist with the impact leaders, volunteers from impact leaders, and get their inputs as well. And then that list is of people across sectors, of organizations who might have a few people in the team or very, lots and lots of people in the team, but who are doing amazing work anyway. So we could have the GCSO, and then, or it could have like a company with 10 people, but who's doing equally amazing work. And then there are policy people who who would make a conversation meaningful around sustainability. So that's really our definition. So it could like we have the climate lead from WMO, Roberta, who's very, very active, and then we have CSOs of some of the largest companies as well. And then we bring them together. And I think that really fills a gap. Everybody goes back having learned something because it's very cross-sectoral. And we've tried to make it as a community with, where it's all by the community and for the community. And there is a science and an art in doing this, right? Like how do you like bring them together so they all talk to each other and there are partnerships and amazing things which just come out of that. And I'm really thankful to the Dubai government to have supported all of this as well, because there's no agenda, which is so refreshing because nothing is sponsored and all
Yeah,
of that. Yeah.
yeah. I also truly believe that the best magic happens in blank space.
Yeah.
If you just put like great people together
Yeah.
who are like-minded,
Completely.
cross-pollination happens in the
Yes.
blank emptiness, right? You don't
Completely.
need to drive the agenda after a point. You just introduce the right people and then
It's
great
the
stuff happens.
people. It's the
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Which is why whenever I think of SustainLabs Paris and all the work you do, it really is cross-pollination. And I think it's a confluence of talent, capital, policy,
Yeah.
and corporate demand, right?
Yeah.
Those four are the key ingredients at least in my limited time in climate and sustainability, 5 years,
Yeah,
that has been the secret sauce for getting anything real done,
I
any
agree
real impact driven,
completely.
right? And if one of the four is missing, it becomes a lot harder.
Yes.
Um, so those four, and I think just cross-pollinating that is really what you guys have done so well, and
Thank you.
it's really, really cool. For example, leading into another one of your initiatives, right, which is education. You've set up a climate school, Anant Climate School.
Yeah.
What's the thinking behind that, and what outcomes has it driven and led to?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, so education, yeah, very close to my heart, as you probably can see. So when we started SustainLabs Paris, we were focusing on organizational transformation. So, very early days of sustainability, I was the chief sustainability officer of the Jindal, the Jindal
Yeah.
Steel and Power Group. So, and there was able to do a few things on moving the company to renewables and stuff. And then, so when I started SustainLabs Paris during a sabbatical at GSPL, I created this. The whole idea was to work on organizational transformation. But while we were doing that, we were working with around 200 companies by then, and then the one thing which was common was that the people are not there and people are running to consultants, and we're not consultants. We work on like long-term transformation and stuff. And then, so I wrote an opinion editorial, literally, so it was published by the Financial Times. And then on who's going to start India's first climate school and focusing on India. And that got picked up during a board meeting. I was in a board meeting and, it got picked up. And then Ajay Piramal was there and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And then Anant was a client already. So Anant National University, it was a client for organizational transformation only. So Ajay Piramal had just bought out that university and, brought us into making everything like all sustainable logistics and pedagogy and all of that. So that's how it started. So we started with, we started with the engineering degree program. It was, I mean, I really am so grateful for the opportunity to have been able to do that. It's India's first engineering degree program focusing on climate. So we had to work with the ICT on the nomenclature. It didn't exist also, BTech and climate
Yeah.
change. So
This came way before Stanford launched its own climate school.
yes, a
The
few months
Door
before
School of
that.
Sustainability,
Yeah, and then I was like,
which was their first new building in 70 years, right?
Yes,
But you preceded the
yes, a few months.
establishment of the Climate Action Program, which is really
Exactly.
cool.
Exactly. It was the first department of Stanford after 70 years. And that came a few months after we launched ours. So, yeah, so it's a 4-year engineering degree program. And I have to pinch myself when I go there because there are labs and there is faculty members, amazing faculty members. And that was the other challenge, Annie. How do you find PhDs and, like academics who've dedicated their life on climate change on a subject which doesn't exist in academia? Again, universities are not offering degrees in this. So how do you find professors for this? So all of that, there's a boarding facilities, and it's the third year of students now. But we also have an executive education institution with Microsoft, which sits on their main website. It's by Microsoft and SustainLabs Paris, and it offers executive education. It's called Sustainability DIY, like do it yourself. Again, making sure companies are just doing it themselves rather than going to consultants, like do it yourself. Lots and lots of tools, free of cost. So that's free of cost. And then we have a third one. Okay, I'm going to announce it here. Um, and it's in Dubai. So it's a school of sustainability. It's for vocational education. And we did the same thing. We had to work with the government to come up with the new diploma, the nomenclature, and all of that. I won't give you the details of that, soon to be announced officially by the government, but it's in partnership with the government. And I'm so proud of that. It has lots of certificate programs, diploma programs, and it's going to open its doors for student intake this year in September.
That's really, really cool. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
You're really taking a lot more talent, and I think just opportunities for people to go and consider climate to be their first career, right? It's not just a project or a lifestyle choice anymore.
Yeah.
It can be a career,
Yeah.
and the first one at that.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Have you seen that people thinking that, okay, they come straight out of school and climate or sustainability
Yeah.
work is a real job, right? It's not just the right thing to do for the planet, but there's also money to be made in it.
Yeah.
You seeing that intersection happen?
Yes. Since the time we uh, have been investing in education, the the youth, the students, yes. The change I'm seeing is in parents. So, the generation who's now in the 40s, 50s. So 4 years ago, even, they were like, oh, kids just go become an, I don't know, like doctor or whatever, like, like some of the IT engineer or things like that.
Doctor, lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, IT engineer. And now, many of the first batch of students across all that we do and stuff, they were children. It was amazing. They were children of professionals in the field, because the
Oh,
parents,
wow. The parents were in the same
yeah, so
space.
parents were in the same place, so they knew, so they knew, so then their kids were there. So it was like all but one were children of parents in that space. So that was amazing. But now we're getting, kids from families now who understand this, and because especially for undergrad, it's the parents who make a lot of the
Yeah,
decisions
the parents
in
were
most parts of the
very.
world. So, so that's there. But for some of the other programs we run, so we do a fellowship. We're launching another fellowship, Climate Leadership Fellowship. I'm very, very excited about. Been doing another fellowship for climate action for the last 5 years. And then we work with the Ministry of Education in the UAE. We are the Green Capacity Building Partner. So we've been like working across UAE on capacity building for climate and sustainability, changing the curriculums and all of that. So most with the children, that the work that we do, we see that that generation is with it. They know that they're the scope of it. But all the work that we do with the fellowship and leadership and all of that I'm seeing a big change, in that generation, that they are catching on as well.
People who were second generation climate, um,
Yeah.
professionals.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's already happening in like our
Yes. It's
lifetimes.
amazing. Yes.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So now let's say these students have learned, they get into the workforce. The next step is, of course, venture building.
Yeah.
Operate at a venture or build a venture. And you are supporting the building of ventures as well. So you have your own carbon capture company, but you're also supporting other ventures to be scaled up,
Yeah.
right? Can you tell me a little bit more about the carbon capture company you have, and then a lead into what are the types of companies you're actually supporting and how you're helping them scale up?
Yeah. So, carbon capture is a venture, just like our universities are ventures as well. So this is our own, 100% owned, but then the others are in partnership. So we saw, because we worked with oil and gas companies, ADNOC
Yeah,
in the UAE and so on. So, we felt that there are sectors with very hard to abate emissions. And even though there are targets, and we know that certain sectors are falling off targets and all of that, in the run up to those targets, and those it's which is set for 2050, 2040 at best, or 2050 mostly for certain sectors. Um, this generation, our generation, is going to be breathing in fumes. And even for companies who are moving towards being net zero, it's the lungs of, Indonesia and Vietnam. Those are getting better, but then in the cities, and especially close to industrial zones, because of offsetting, right? Because of so it's some other places going green, but not the cities and the industrial zones where these factories are actually emitting smoke. So that was is honestly, like, that was what got me into saying that, we have to invest more in transition economy technologies. And it's very clear for me that it is a transition economy sector. Carbon capture has to go hand in hand with renewables, because renewables is the longer term, but that transition will take time, and it is slow, and it needs to speed up, but still it'll take time. So what we do is that we fill in another gap within that sector, where we go end to end on industrial carbon capture. So the space on capture bit is quite crowded. If you see, like, a lot of the largest, some of the scale ups as well, and largest startups in the space are focusing on the capture bit. And there's, I think, been a lot of good innovation there, using various technologies and all of that. So, and then then there is the storage bit or the / usage, right? So storage is, of course, much talked about. And then there's oil and gas industry has been doing it for years for enhanced oil recovery and all of that. And then there is usage. But then there are very few companies who are doing end to end, that, to actually to capture the carbon and then to transport it and then to embed it. So that's what we do. And we have joined hands with our family company. So on my husband's side, my family doesn't have a company. My father was in the Air Force and mom's a school teacher and all that.
Oh my God.
Now we come to get to know this.
I know.
Yeah. But my husband said they have like this 40-year-old construction company in across a few countries. So we join hands with them because they have the infrastructure know-how for, laying out all of this. And then we come in with the knowledge of, climate and and carbon capture. And we've also roped in some of the labs in the universities that we've built. So we brought those labs in as well, brought in academia to put this together. So we've been doing infrastructure projects, industrial infrastructure projects. We're also speaking to very exciting. We're speaking to uh, industrial zones as they are setting up. Can't take the names, but then we're talking to them about setting up the facility during the design phase of it as they are growing, so that all the industries, they don't have to set up vertical vertical factory chimneys, but then they can have pipes which take the fumes out and store them.
How long has it been going on? This carbon capture
We started
initiative?
it 2 years ago.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. And you are selling carbon credits from the carbon capture to enterprises.
So the company which is whichever company is investing in this, they get the carbon credits.
Oh, they get it.
They
Okay.
get it.
It's
Yeah.
like an offtake that they get.
Yeah, so it's not an offset really. So it is basically they are saving on their CO2 emissions
Yeah,
and therefore they get carbon
offtake.
credits.
Yeah,
Yes, and that's why they also, it's good for them to reach their net zero targets as well.
for sure, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. That's pretty cool. And what about the other ventures that you're supporting? So you said you don't fully own them, you're partnering with other types of ventures. What are some of them? What types of sectors are they working on? Is it all decarbonization or is it into other areas of climate and sustainability too, like
Yeah.
water, waste?
Yeah, so we focus a lot on decarbonization, and even like if you see, like even education is focusing on decarbonization as well. So
Yeah.
GITEX impact is one. Then we're also into housing as well. So we've done some work in Asia Pacific on affordable housing and making that sustainable. We work extensively in the building and construction sector in the UAE as well. So that's not ventures, but that's part of organizational transformation. Um, and then we also have our own foundation. So we consider that as a venture as well because there's a whole team running that, but that's fully owned by us as well.
Lot to manage, a lot of different organizations, so many different programs. How do you keep it all together?
Like you said, it's the team. I think we've organized ourselves non-traditionally and creatively to make it work. So we have a core team, which is then split into a partners team because some of the work that we do 50-50, like 50% of the work we do is with partnership with other organizations. So there's a partnership team. And then there's a venture circle. So it's team that we call circles. So then there's a word venture circle where all the work kind of happens. And then there is a design circle and an art circle. Um, and then we have satellite teams. The satellite teams, they are 100% focused on the various ventures. So each of our climate schools have a team. Carbon capture has its own team. GITEX Impact has its own team. Construction has its own team. We're also working on a wellness technology venture as well. So that's, shaping up as another team. And these satellite teams are a mix of our people and the other organizations' people. And then our people actually wear hats and have titles of those organizations. So I'm very grateful for these other organizations to have accepted these new ways of working. And then the core team literally works on all these different ventures altogether, but we do have dedicated teams at these different organizations as well. And then it works.
Yeah, no, I actually asked that for a reason. I think in climate and sustainability, to create real impact, you need to have missionaries on the team,
Oh, yes.
right? And there
Completely.
is no like there's no replicable
Yeah.
copy paste model of a team
Yeah.
structure that works well.
Yeah.
So you have to get supremely creative
You have to be very creative.
and
Yes.
very creative because there's so many different efforts, right? There's policy focused efforts, education, capital,
Yes.
venture building,
Yes.
corporate,
Yes.
events, and
Yeah.
keeping it all together is not easy.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
really need like finding someone like that who can actually be that value add is just
Absolutely. The team
there are
was
people like that.
the team is brilliant. I mean, you've met some of them as well
Yeah.
at SLB. So, the team is absolutely brilliant. And, you know, my job almost always is to tell them to go to sleep because they are like still working late. And I don't want that kind of a place where people are working, but they're doing it out of passion. There's, uh, there's no work. So, we don't do job descriptions at all. And we carve out every role with the person, and as the person evolves. So my design head told me one day that he wrote to me a letter saying that, "Listen, I want to get into arts." It's like, okay, let's create an art circle. And you see a lot of our stuff have amazing art in it, and it kind of mainstreams what we do with all his amazing art. So my strategy head said, "Hey, I'm interested in finance." I was like, "All right, let's look at climate finance." And because of that, we're working with some of the biggest banks, working on climate risk. We didn't talk about that much in this podcast. We're doing a lot of work on climate finance. And so, I think you're right that when we bring together people who are very passionate about what they do, the you can't work traditionally. You have to evolve with how the people are evolving. And maybe that's the recipe.
So, Mini, I think the last leg I wanted to go into is again the confluence, right? Policy,
Yeah.
education, capital, ventures, and corporate demand.
Yeah.
Um, Without that, like nothing can get done because
Yeah.
someone has to buy solutions.
Yeah.
And we have found that to be the single biggest lever for
Mhm.
really scaling impact. Enterprises need to step up and actually say, okay, like I want to decarbonize. I have a
Yes.
net zero goal and I want solutions.
Yeah.
How does that fit into your model? Can you actually talk about some companies you think are really championing corporate demand really well? And what are
Yeah.
they doing right?
Yeah. Um, so our model is that we work long term with organizations, and then building with them something that they want to build. So that takes me off the need to keep my finger on, what they on corporate demand, that in that sense. So um because yeah, but then so I in different regions I see different trends. If you look at the Middle East, if you look at the UAE, we talked about this before, that it's very government driven, and so we're working a lot with governments. It's not corporate demand; it's mostly the government demand, and they're doing interesting things. And I love the scale of what you can do when you partner with the government and all of that. The sectors here, of course, oil and gas, but they have a very, very steep, climb. So there it's decarbonization, hardcore. I'm glad if it's not decarbonization, then it's communication. So I'm kind of sticking to decarbonization bit. And then there are a large number of actually SMEs and startups in Saudi, and so there is a lot of manufacturing SMEs and all that as well who are coming up, and even manufacturing needs a lot of work, and that's where carbon capture company comes in, and working with them on that. um, the IT side, like technology, information technology, and all of that, for them, it's the easiest. So, it's like, the emissions are the lowest and all that. So, both in India as well as here. So, in India, for example, Tech Mahindra is a partner. We've done a lot of good work together. And, so they, so they're always ranking very high on sustainability and stuff. And then there is like a lot of low hanging fruits, there. So every region and every sector, I see like it's quite varied. In Europe, uh, in some sectors are quite advanced, like logistics sector is actually quite advanced. Even in other parts of the Middle East and Kuwait and all of that, logistics in Europe as well, it's quite advanced with adopting electric vehicles and doing things efficiently and all of that. But then certain sectors in Europe, like the steel industry, they are stuck with their technologies, which was, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So they're stuck with those, and then bringing those down and moving to more efficient ways of production is a lot of investment. So, and then in the Asia Pacific, we work in New Zealand and Fiji, and housing is a big thing. I mean, I think COVID really battered the economy there. And the one sector which has its head over the waters is real estate construction. So that's why that sector is there's lots to do there. So yeah, and then there's renewables and all that is very matured in that part of the world, very very matured, and that's so good. But interestingly, reporting is not. Because it's just been part of their economy, and now they're like, oh, do we also have to account for it, and do we have to even report and all that? So yeah, so just from the vantage point of the regions of the work that we do, I see that there's a lot of contrast between different sectors and regions.
No, that's really good to hear. Regionally, I think sectorally is a big focus. And I think it's important to know in which region, which industry
Yeah.
is the demand for climate
Yes.
solution,
Yes.
right? Yeah, because
US is a
innovators
different
like us,
story now. Not even picking that up.
I'm sorry.
I think US is a different story altogether. I'm not even picking that up at all.
Yeah. I mean, it says a lot that we haven't even brought up the US in this
I
conversation.
didn't, yeah, that's why I didn't, because it's just,
Yeah, till 4 5 months ago, it would have been a big part of the conversation.
yeah,
Now it's just like we're all skirting around it.
yeah,
And, the
sadly,
world
yeah,
has to move on while they figure out what
absolutely.
their situation
Yeah.
is. Minya, what is your hope for the future? You're building a lot. You're bringing people together. What is your hope for the future, and what is one way people can actually reach out to work with you as well and get involved?
Yeah, my hope for the future that it becomes a friendlier place.
Mhm.
There's a lot on, I think friendship is undervalued, because if you have friends, I don't like the word network. I don't like to network also. Doing
Yeah.
work with friends, people, there's trust. There'll be less wars. I think the last few years we've seen so much of bloodshed, and if there was just more friendship, it wouldn't be. There would be better ways to collaborate if there is trust between people as well. So I'm just hoping for people, for more friendship in the world. Ways to work with me is quite easy. So send us an email, sustain@labsparis.com or minia@labsparis.com. So send me an email if there's anything that you want to build together. If you want to move your organization to doing things more responsibly. Yeah, so shoot me an email.
That's such a lovely thought, more trust
Yeah.
and more just friendship.
Yeah.
Because it's a very anxious world, and
Yes.
especially the space that we're in, climate and sustainability,
Yes.
there feels like there's so much doom and gloom. There's
Yeah.
actually a lot of hope, and there's great solutions out there.
Yeah.
And the more we don't network, but we come together as
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
the better we can actually just exchange
Yeah.
ideas and like build toward a better, cleaner, safer, fairer future, which is really what even I want. Better,
Yeah.
cleaner, safer, fairer, wealthier future for everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
So really appreciate you for everything you do at SustainLabs Paris.
Thank you.
I think you've gone way beyond Paris now, so
I
it's
know.
truly
I
SustainLabs.
know. Never have a city or a country's name, in your company. You never know where all it takes you.
Yeah. But truly, truly like inspirational work that you're doing. And
Thank you.
we really look forward to collaborating with you a lot more.
Thanks.
And yeah, thank you for this conversation too, Miniya.
Thank you, Annie. All the best. Thanks for inviting me. It was lovely chatting with you. And see you soon.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
You.